What's up, y'all? Happy Friday. We back. This video is gonna be chapter 3 of my Gatman Chronicles. A lot of y'all don't know. Some of y'all know, who have been subscribed for a little while, that I'm tied to the Gatman. I know the Gatman family, which is the Wilsons. They're all Wilsons mostly, but I'm talking about Charlie, Robert, and Ronnie. Remember, the Gatman stands for Greenwood Archer Pine. The group originated out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where they're from. The group was formed on behalf of the Black Wall Street. If you don't know about the Black Wall Street, I encourage you to do your research and learn about the Black Wall Street, because they were crucial to even these times right now, and they're crucial to why we're at where we're at right now, as far as the strides we've made in this country. But it was a lot that has been swept under the rug about the Black Wall Street. So I encourage y'all to learn that on your own time. But like in my other video, in chapter 2, I was talking about how my mom met Ronnie Wilson of the Gap Band, and how she eventually married him. Originally, my mom and my dad, they were married. They had 3 boys, me, my twin brother, and my younger brother. Our home church was in Compton, California. I call it the Tower, the Dark Tower. And in another video, I'll explain why I call it the Dark Tower. But it's at the Tower. It's off Rosecrans, pretty much Rosecrans and Atlantic. If you're familiar with Rosecrans, well, a lot of y'all have heard of Rosecrans Street, but it's pretty much on Rosecrans right before you hit Atlantic, and it's right there in Luders Park. If you know about Luders Park, Piru, Blood Gang neighborhood, is right there in Luders Park. So that was our home church in Compton. My mom met Ronnie Wilson there. When I don't know what brought him to that particular church, Ronnie Wilson. I don't know what led his spirit there, but he met my mom because my mom was a musician. I'm sure he met my dad too, because my dad was a musician as well. My mom and dad were organists. My dad was a director. My mom was a organist, songwriter, and she was an alto in the choir. My dad was the organist, songwriter, and tenor in the choir. But he was also the director, one of the main directors of the choir. Long story short, when Ronnie joined the church, that brought a whole lot more popularity to the church, because he already had a name. He was known in the secular world, the Gap Band. So he turned his life around. My mom and my dad was already having their issues, and it got real toxic to where my mom had a nervous breakdown, and she had a situation to where she had to detach from everybody. My dad, my brothers and I, even her own parents for a minute. And then once she was getting herself some help and picking up the pieces of her life, Ronnie gravitated towards my mom. And when my mom was in a vulnerable state, he was there for her. And while my dad was still living his life, doing his thing, and still involved in the church and working, my mom was she was still working and involved in church, but really at that point she had to detach from the church because of the toxicity between her and my dad, and she had to just figure out her life and what she was going to do, what was going to be her next move. So Ronnie gravitated towards my mom. I don't know all the details of how they hooked up, but they hooked up. My mom took a liking to him. Ronnie was definitely attracted to my mom. My mom's a very attractive woman, and she stood out in the church. And so what ended up happening was Ronnie, he had got a house in Burbank, California. And my brothers and I, when my mom had to detach, we ended up having to stay at my auntie's house in LA. And it was about 3 adults, my auntie, my uncle, my dad, one teenager, which is one of my older cousins, and then it was me, my twin brother, my younger brother, and my two other cousins. So it was about 5 kids, 1 teenager, 3 adults in a 2.5 bedroom house and 1 bathroom. But as kids, we were on cloud nine. We wasn't worried about all that. We wasn't thinking about we was in poverty and in the hood. We was just kids. So we try to make the best of it. We were still in school. We were still at the academy. We graduated. And then maybe a little bit after that, my mom got custody of us in court because, financially, the judge felt like it made more sense for my mom and Ronnie to have custody of us over my dad and in the situation we were in that little house, which was understandable. And when my mom picked us up from LA to take us to our new home in Burbank with Ronnie, we not only when we got picked up, it was another little kid who became our stepbrother eventually, but he was adopted by his uncle, which is Ronnie Wilson. So Ronnie Wilson adopted his nephew from Oklahoma. I don't know if they flew him out there or what. I think they went and picked him up. They drove out to Tulsa, Oklahoma from California, picked up, we called him Bing Bong. That was his nickname, Bing Bong. We picked up Bing Bong, and when they got him, they came back to California and they got us out of LA. And then from LA, we went to Burbank. Now in Burbank, shortly after we got settled in, I didn't meet Charlie Wilson first. I met Robert. Now, of course, I knew Ronnie because Ronnie was in a relationship with my mom, and he married my mom. But out of the other brothers in the Gap Band, the first other brother I met was Robert before I met Charlie, the lead singer. But Robert, the bass player, he had got injured, seriously injured, and he had a serious, like a big old hole in his leg, like as if a pole went through there, punctured his leg or something like that. And I don't know what his reasons was for avoiding going to the hospital, but my mom had to nurse him. My mom had to nurse Robert and get him back up to par. And she did it. He was there staying with us for months. So as kids, we got familiar with Robert. Really good dude, really good heart, very laid back, good spirit. As a kid, somebody's off or not, but I had nothing negative to say about Robert or Charlie. But Robert, he couldn't tour with the Gap Band while he was trying to get healed up and heal up his injury, his leg injury. So my mom, that was her first mark on the Wilson family, and I think the Wilson family, it was a gift and curse because my mom started being depended on by the Wilson family a whole lot, But my mom definitely helped get Robert back up to par. I mean, she helped heal that injury up quick, and Uncle Robert always was indebted to her, or not indebted to her, but he always was grateful for her. So he always made sure that it was like he treated her like sis, like look out after sis. If Big Brother was tripping with my sister-in-law, then Big Brother gonna have to talk to me. That's kind of how he felt because of what my mom did for him. So Robert Wilson of the Gap Band, good guy. He battle some drug addiction, alcohol abuse. He always had when I was a kid, he had a perm, then long nails. Nails was already, he had the French tips, he had the gold chains on, the gold tooth and all of that. So this is the 3rd chapter where I'm about to end it shortly, but I met Bing Bong when my mom got custody of us. We moved to Burbank, and we ended up getting enrolled into a school in Torrance, elementary school. That's when we started 1st grade. And so we were living in Burbank, going to school in Torrance, California. And my mom was working in Torrance. She had my grandma had a hair salon, and my mom was working there at the hair salon with my grandma. So that was the beginning stages of me learning the Gap Band, learning Robert and Ronnie. And then in my next video, I'll let y'all know about how when we moved from Burbank a little bit after a year or so, And Ronnie got a better, bigger home, and then that's when we met Charlie when he first came to visit. So the first Christmas we spent in Moreno Valley, which is the city that we moved to after Burbank. That's when we met Charlie, and I'll tell you in chapter 4 of how we met him and how that started off. Peace.